India has provided the much needed push for nuclear energy in the budget this year, acknowledging that this is an energy source that the world needs to aspire for in the coming years. But while a lot of work is happening in the fission department, its much cleaner counterpart, nuclear fusion, still requires government attention. Hello and welcome to The Print. My name is Soumya Pillai, and today we are in Bangalore to speak to the founders of India's first nuclear fusion startup, Pranos, who's trying to break the glass ceiling in making nuclear fusion the energy for tomorrow.
31-year-old Shaurya Kaushal and 32-year-old Roshan George decided to enter the field of nuclear fusion in 2021. After several rounds of brainstorming, Pranos was finally born in May of 2024 as one of the first nuclear fusion startups.
Pranos comes from the Sanskrit word prana, which means energy and cosmos, and you put them together, you get Pranos. Yeah, Roshan's an avid yogi, so we did also want to bring in the Indianness and the Sanskrit derivative into this. I myself am a Marvel fan, so I wanted something similar to Thanos. We're placing Pranos as probably Thanos' nicer brother, who's going to make fusion happen so that we don't need to eradicate half of the population. Roshan and I we've been friends for 9 years. We met in Bangalore. That's when we've been working on science projects together. And since 2021 is when we started talking about fusion specifically. I think that was quite exciting. The JET experiment had the world record for sustained fusion, which is for 5 seconds and an output of 12 megawatts. So that was pretty exciting. Yeah, and so in 2024, I quit my career in academia, and Roshan quit his career in corporate renewable energies, and we decided to start Pranos. Yeah. So,
Nuclear fusion is the process by which two light atomic nuclei combine to form a single heavier one while releasing massive amounts of energy. On the other hand, nuclear fission is the process where the nucleus of an atom splits into two or more smaller nuclei and other particles. While a lot of work is already happening around the world on fission, fusion technology is still in the experimental stages across the world, primarily because of how challenging it is to stabilize and contain plasma, the fourth stage of matter, which does not behave like a regular gas and is extremely difficult to contain.
Why we wanted to do this in India was also a major part of this was when we decided to work on fusion, we were looking for opportunities to do this in India and we couldn't find anything. Whereas in the last 5 to 10 years, across the world, there have been global startups which have essentially taken up the responsibility of shorter turnover times to create fusion technology in the next 10 years. So fusion power plant is essentially coming within the next 10 years globally, where every country has federal projects as well as startups working together to make this a possibility. And nothing like this existed in India, and we essentially wanted to take that initiative and take that drive to make this happen. And yeah, luckily for us, India has been looking at privatizing nuclear energy. We're very happy to see that there are initiatives in making this happen, especially in the recent budget which was announced, where there's 20,000 crores that's been allocated for small modular reactors. So India understands its position as a global superpower, that they need to attend to a lot of the problems that India as a big population is suffering from right now. There is increased pressure from the international community on carbon emissions. That we have a big population that we need to provide for, and there's also increased dependence on AI, which is only going to grow. All of these things requires energy, and one major area of work where this energy could come from is nuclear energy, and specifically fusion, because it's much cleaner. We have a statistic on Right now, how much power on the grid it comes from nuclear energy for India, right?
That's around, currently it's around 1%, whereas whereas countries like the USA has around 10% of their energy coming into the grid from nuclear. Yeah.
Yeah, and France is like around 70%. The global average is around 10%. And so that has to change, and that has to change because the future of energy is a good mix of all sources. Increased dependence on coal is definitely not going to help going forward.
2070 is India's goal for net zero, whereas other countries like UK and US have it for 2050. And the Prime Minister's initiative to aim for 100 gigawatts of nuclear fission reactors here by 2047 is going to help us achieve that.
Despite the government's push for nuclear energy, the policies are still biased towards fission. But the duo is ready to carve a path for nuclear fusion, realizing its extensive potential.
Now, in our journey of deciding, we face many challenges, and I think the major first challenge was to understand regulations in India, which is especially the Atomic Energy Act, and how we answered the challenge of choosing a direction for Pranos was with the existing structure was how do we stay compliant to AEA and continue to work on fusion. So our approach starts with simulation and design, where we want to look at electromagnetism, heat transfer, fluid mechanics, simulation and design, and stay compliant to Atomic Energy Act without having to deal with any radioactive fuel or any of the materials that are prohibited. So it's almost like creating the structure before you actually build a reactor. So this part of our work essentially starts with understanding what small reactors could look like, understanding their physics, and designing them in a way that they can, when allowed, can deliver net fusion power. So that's essentially been our direction of thought because we do understand there are changes, and when I say changes, there's been a huge push in the from the nuclear fission industry. And essentially, the Atomic Energy Act is going to change for allowing public-private partnerships where private players can put in private money to develop fission technologies so that new reactors can come up much faster. But such steps have not been taken yet for fusion, and that I think needs to change. And we want to drive that change, understanding that fusion is a global phenomena which is happening everywhere right now. There are around 25 companies in the US, there are 10 companies in Europe. In Asia, there are around 10 companies, and in our neighborhood, where every day there are new world records being set for fusion technologies. China very recently did 1000 seconds of confinement, which is a big breakthrough. In 2021, the Joint European Torus did 5 seconds of confinement. So things are moving really fast, and India historically has been a country which has been very advanced in fusion technology. For example, the early initiatives at Indian Institute of Plasma Research, Gandhinagar, set up Aditya, which is a fusion reactor, in 1989. So the initial steps were, and that's around the same time JET was formed and first reactors across the world were formed. But what's helped other countries in breaking new records is their ability to use private funding and also support private ventures in this direction, and hence they've been able to create technologies faster. And we expect the same from India. I think we're at a point of time where there isn't a working fusion reactor, commercial fusion reactor right now, but it's on the horizon. It's around 10 years away. So right now is the time to act for if we want to be relevant 10 years from now.
The co-founders Shaurya and Roshan know that the road ahead for them is not going to be simple, but they are willing to accept these challenges and endure them to bring nuclear fusion as a cleaner technology for India. We will have to wait and watch to see how the government supports startups such as theirs in the longer run. You were with Soumya Pillai for The Print.